What's up, creative community? Thanks so much for joining the channel once again. Lorenzo from the COACHMC studio. And today we have another epic episode of our Talks on Acting. And you know by now, guys, we are jumping all over the place, traveling all over the world, of discovering the most beautiful and most precious pockets of creativity, whether it's on acting, whether it's on your mindset, whether it's for motivational purposes. And today I couldn't be more proud of ourselves and also really pumped to have a supersonic star of the motivational speaking segment, of the motivational business segment, of the mindset training segment, Mr. Eddie PINERO himself on YouTube with 750K views, who's listened by over 35K monthly listeners on Spotify, who has over 20 million people who have watched his content, and pure voice of a clear and rational mind. That, of course, lets in the emotion and the purpose and the passion of doing all this in the first place. He was such a real person, so I couldn't be more humbled and more proud and more gratified by this encounter today. Thank you so much, Eddie PINERO, for joining the show. Welcome on the COACHMC studio.
Hey, Lorenzo, thank you for such a nice intro, man. And I love what you're doing. I mean, creativity is everything. So I'm excited to be here.
So you made a quite smart move, I might add. I mean, you moved from Boston, that rainy town up in the north, down to the south, which I totally understand. I grew up in Germany. It's always very rainy over here. It's always very cloudy and misty and industrial. And you are now based in Miami, is that right?
That is, yeah. It's funny. I worked so long for the autonomy and the freedom to kind of do work from where I wanted to work. And after I was sitting there one winter, I'm like, why am I here? I think it's time to move on a little bit,
Yeah, I totally understand. You are the creator, the founder of Your World Within, which is this highly motivational, super powerful YouTube channel, also your domain, your website, and you're helping thousands and thousands of people. You said it all began with a rainy day, with you having to kind of run through that very heavy Boston rain and saying, no, I have to change something, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of like, where we all find ourselves from time to time, when you're sort of in the monotony and things are just, they're like routine and you're acting without thinking. And I remember it was just this, this cold day where it wouldn't have been a big deal to not run, but just as easily could have. And I went and I ran and it was uncomfortable and I came back and warmed up and I thought, man, there's a lot of things in life that are like that, where we kind of hide or we shy away instead of embracing them. And the point, which you alluded to, right? The cool part about that is you start to identify as the person that does the kind of uncomfortable thing, right? The little things that quote unquote suck. And after a while they build up and you stand on them, they become who you are. Yeah.
And I think I was so excited about you coming on the show, because I think a lot of creators, a lot of actors, a lot of, creative, sensitive minds, legitimately, sometimes they are afraid of taking a leap, of, running through the rain and, of hurting themselves. Sometimes they're afraid. And that's why I think it's so valuable that you're on the channel, because you're really teaching, like, guys, this is the fun part. This is actually where you build that character, that fortitude of your mind, of your purpose, that later on will get you that revenue, will get you that success, whatever that might look like.
Yeah, exactly. The journey is everything. And it's, putting yourself in position to do, what you like, to do what you love. And the way, like, it's funny because life is peaks and valleys. There's going to be ups and there's going to be lows. And so what I learned right around that time in my life, which is why it was so transformational, it was like, look, if you're going to deal with challenges either way, if there's going to be problems no matter what you do, align them with problems that are significant to you. Do something that matters, so that when things do become difficult, you want to move through and embrace your creative side.
And I also tell this to a lot of my clients and students that, of course, have that drive inside of themselves, that creativity, that spark, and they want to put it into action. They can't wait to kind of unleash their forces, but they struggle sometimes to kind of apprehend that they need a working structure, whatever that structure might look like, but they need some sort of certified working, kind of pretty firm but flexible structure on which you can place those creativity bubbles and spheres with which then you can impact your environment. And this is really funny, because I think this is also relating to your story, because you grew up in a very, your education, like going to college and being the, rowing champion and varsity team, all these, what we kind of have as a standard procedure in America, all over the world. This is the way how you make it to the top. After you apprehended and you dove into that structure, then you decided, no, you know what? Now I need to flip. Now I need to add something else.
Right. I'm pumped that you asked this. I mean, because I had a conversation with Barry Michaels, who's a very renowned psychologist about this, because it's been one of the biggest struggles of my life. And I think a lot of people face that. It's like, I'm a creative. I don't like to know that my deliverable is done at 2 p.m. So hurry up, get it done. It's like, no, and it feels right. It feels right.
Right.
But then at the same time, just the way the world works, if you want to win and if you want to succeed, to some extent, you have to scale and you have to have structure and you have to have routine. And like, I couldn't agree more. It's different for everybody, but there's finding this, the sweet spot where it works for you, where you can block things out. And it's been a lifelong experiment.
So Boston built your character and that workforce and that resilience,
that rugged, cold, exactly.
Skin, and now you're using that, of course, as a base of fundament and adding all those beautiful, activities on top of it and missions on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's funny because when I was a rower in college, you learn about, doing the things that most people won't, and structure and discipline. And so like, I didn't even realize at the time, but I take that with me now. So like, let's say I have a project coming up where I'm making like a little video and I want to write the background music and I want to write the speech and I'm taking my camera out and I want to just make this big production. Well, that takes time. And, I can't afford to spend 2 weeks dilly-dallying on that. I got to be very methodical in how I approach it. And so you see that overlap in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And I think it's the combination makes it winning. To have that spark that you say, okay, now I work on something, that liberty, that freedom, but also that structure to say, okay, but methodologically, I can put it into those little boxes. I can, connect them whenever I want and then let them work for me. Because I think that's something that a lot of creative minds struggle with. They have so much potential, but maybe they're afraid, maybe they're a bit lazy, maybe they are, overwhelmed by the possibilities that they don't really, focus or put a lot of work and time into creating that structure, creating that work. They want to earn a lot of money. They want to, get to success, and they have the talent, but, some people go to college, some people go to university, some people have to invest themselves and then have, take acting classes or coaching classes, learn skills through the internet. We have YouTube, we have so much, but eventually some type of structure you will need. You can't go just crazy, because that will lead to madness and nothing else in the end.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember hearing BJ Novak. Do you know who he is? One of the producers for The Office?
No. Okay.
He's in some stuff. He was in Tools of Tight. It was just like a 2-page summary, but he talks about his creative process. Cause I've always been like interested in what you're talking about. He would say, I just take a walk.
That's super smart. James, before any invention, he said, I need to take a walk.
Exactly. I like that. He says, some days I get things done. Some days I don't. But I know it's coming, and I don't beat myself up and I don't stress because I believe in myself in the process. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing. Kind of takes the pressure off,
I mean, of course, you had to leave behind security by doing this transformation, that you also invite people to take. Some path of transformation is involved in scaling up and taking it to the next level. There is no, second net. There is no security that this will actually work. Confidence is, of course, working on your insecurities, on your inconsistencies, on that. But it takes a lot of courage, though. In the end, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of love and belief in what you have, to kind of leave everything behind on what you built on so far to see what happens.
Amen, brother. Yeah. So there's a quote that I love by Ryan Holiday. He says, confidence is earned, right? You have to, like, it took me a while to trust myself, but it was like, Eddie, it's okay, man. It's okay to go out and test the waters, because you won't let yourself fail. Shit will go wrong. Things will fall apart, but you won't let yourself fail. And it's amazing how far we go in life without ever trusting ourselves to be vulnerable like that, right? So like this, video stuff, the YouTube stuff, production, all that, like that was almost an accident. Like I quit my job to produce music, and I was writing acoustic songs, and I was, producing other people in Boston. And, like you said, there was no safety net. The money started drying up, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. Right. And I made this little video. I'm like, I want to make it feel like an Apple commercial. I just want it to be powerful, short, impactful. And it was basically saying, I won't quit. And I threw it online and it blew up. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Right. And so that allowed me to take a step back and like, well, I can take the music piece and I can take these things I love and I can pivot because I started to see what was working.
Mhm.
And you know, where you add value and what you love, when those two things line up, there's fireworks. And so that was
Absolutely.
my moment. Yeah, yeah.
It kind of feels like that you flip the pyramid. Everybody's going out just first, learn a lot of, just build something and then kind of, market that. And then maybe in the end, you will earn something. You kind of flipped it. You said, let's see what I can learn. Let's see at first how much critical mass I can accumulate. And
Right.
then I build something. I don't really know what it is perfectly right now. I don't see like the sharp, but I sense more than knowing. I feel more than knowing that there is like a truth behind that.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's like, cause you got to wander, you know, and I know it's a cliche to be like, do what you love. Like,
Yeah.
I understand, but the reality is, like, my goal, like a lot of people, I want to be great. You know, I want to be the 0.01%,
Mhm.
which means I got to stick with it. And you only stick with things, you only want to go above and beyond with stuff that you really love, that you want to immerse yourself in. So that means you have to spend, it was the most important year of my life. You got to spend a year or however long trying things, seeing what you enjoy, seeing what you don't. Because by the way, learning the shit that I never want to do again was just as important as learning what I like, right? So it was
Yes.
really a process of discovery for me.
Rousseau once said, liberty is not that every human is allowed to do what he wants, but not to do what he doesn't want.
Ooh, I
And
love
to,
that.
to finally figure out what you definitely don't want. I think that's one of the biggest starting points in your life. Finally, you have control. People always teach you, no is bad. Don't say no. Don't say no in a negotiation. Don't start with no here and there. Don't start no if you start meeting somebody. But I don't think that's totally accurate and actually true. I think no gives you leverage.
Yeah, there's one of my favorite books is literally about just the word no. It's about it's called Essentialism, and it's about simplification and just cutting away. Like your routine, the people, the things, the activity. So much of what we do, it's funny. We take a step back and we look at it, and it's like this has nothing to do with what I want in life. And so, yeah, I mean, the power of no
Thank
is
you so
super powerful.
much, but no.
Exactly.
Listen, Eddie, I'm stressing out on the story, on the history of where the people that I interview come from, because I think I'm into history. I was always fascinated about history, always studying pretty much everything that has to do with history, even going back to archaeology, because I'm really fascinated where the thing has its true beginning, where the core of everything actually resides. Because starting from the original point, you can't go really wrong. If you're stuck with the how can I say, the nuances all the time, the manifestations of the core, sometimes that could be misleading, because the manifestation of the core isn't really the thing that started it. It transformed along the path, and that might be good, but it's not really the thing that led there. So I'm curious, like you said, you made this video and that video blew up and you kind of realized I got something. But making a video doesn't mean, okay, I leave Boston. I mean, what really happened? I'm really curious for those artists out there that are struggling maybe on the countryside or maybe in a city that is not their place, like to really, have that faith inside of themselves. Like, oh yeah, I can relate to that. This happened to me, or this is right now happening to me. So yeah, I can do it too.
Yeah. Well, I think what I learned about myself was that I'm a creative person, and that drives me more than anything. And so it can materialize in a lot of ways. It can be writing, it can be music, it can be videography. And it was sort of like I saw it as a puzzle, you know?
Mhm.
So and there were times, by the way, and I guess I'll get to this in a second. So video allowed me to feel like I could be creative and be expressive without something feeling like a job. Like I wake up and I'm excited about it. And that's sort of the litmus test, right? Now I've made along the way changes and tweaks where it's like, okay, I got to make more money quickly. And then I try and change things and I do things and it ends up, it's like, oh, like, look
Mhm.
at that. I hate it now, right? So I'll reel it back in and adjust and make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. Because when you do that and you stay authentic, I feel like all the other stuff works itself out, right? Now
Mhm.
I'm not saying go starve, 100% not saying that, but when you do something because it drives you, and that's what the Your World Within was for me. It's like, the first 50 videos I did, for the most part, I wrote and recorded the music and I wrote the speech and made the video, and it just felt like this piece of self-expression that I was so proud of. And when you do it enough and you become good at it, then people start calling for keynotes, and companies want speeches written and they want videos made. And it's like, I didn't go out to make money writing speeches or do these things. I went out to just do what felt awesome and become good at it. And you see that stuff materialize.
Oh yeah, for sure, man, because your stuff is real. I mean, I have to stress this point out for the community out there, because there are so many people on YouTube, on the internet, even in the classical outlets out there that look and sound real, but once, you hire them, once you spend money, once you, go down their path, you realize they're not real at all. They're not real at all. And you have to be very careful from which person, from which source you take your piece of advice, because a bad advice can cost you a lot of time in your life. So that's why I'm stressing out, guys, check out Eddie, because your words they're anchored. They're not just said. And that's what's so remarkable about the effect that they have, about the impact, about the chain reaction they actually set off. And that's so rare. Let me tell you this, because I'm an actor for over 30 years. I know how words act. I know how words can impact people and how they can change your mindset in seconds, your dopamine levels, everything. And you know perfectly how to trigger. So that's, first of all, my question would be, where does that come from? Because I think you're a great actor. You're a terrific actor, man. You are. I mean, your expressions are on point when you're saying the things that you're saying. Also on your talks, like everything is conducted without being artificial, which is really hard to achieve.
Well, first of all, thank you. I mean, that's truly that's the best compliment I can receive. So I really appreciate that.
No, absolutely.
And the way I approach it is the way a lot of artists do. It's a story. Like because anything, you got to be careful in this niche, because things come across as preachy and holier than thou, and for me, yeah, exactly. But for me, it's like, it's a story. It's something that happened to me. Either I got my ass kicked and learned and I'm writing about it, or I did something that I think is great and I learned and I'm writing about it. But either way, it's something that I learned. And, I want to paint it in a way that's emotive, right? Human beings are not rational. We're emotional. We need emotion for us to understand and take action. So I'll paint it that way. And then if it applies and you want to put it in your back pocket and use it for when, it might be conducive to what you're doing, hell yeah, please. And if it doesn't, move right along. Maybe the next one will, so that's kind of the way I approach it.
Beautiful. Was your environment as into your beliefs as you were when you started doing this crazy endeavor?
Oh, dude, I was in like an insurance company. It was like the driest. I get yelled at for using color on a PowerPoint.
What are you planning to do? Right.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it was a tough transition for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And your family,
especially in the
yeah.
My what? Sorry.
Yeah, your family was at least supportive.
They were, yeah. They're my biggest fans. I'm forever grateful for that. Yeah. Because I'll tell you, when you spend 2 weeks working on something and you release it to the world, and no one says anything, it's tough. But you got your mom, your dad, your grandmother giving you the thumbs up. It's good.
I know, man. We are a small channel, and it's going well so far. So, but I know exactly what you mean. Watching your videos, and also listening to your podcast, which is always so, it's so on point. There is no superfluous information, flaw, ornamentation, anything like that. But it's still entertaining. So that's, again, it's very rare to see the combinations of those two qualities. But it seems, besides that you have a very clear compass inside of yourself for what you deem right or not. Is that all coming from the bad experiences, or is that something that you have, like an inborn talent? Can something like that be taught to people? Because, like I said, bad advices can take you on very strange paths for a long time. You can waste a lot of time and money also in the process. For
sure. I mean, most of it is what I aim to be, and what I try, because the YouTube channel that is much bigger than the podcast, is more performance. It's artsy and it's emotive. It's like it's a cinematic experience, right? And then to your point, the podcast is like information, like get in, get out. Here's 5 minutes. It's a thought. And so I just kind of wanted them to supplement each other. And it's like, I think it's interesting when you wake up in the morning, and you have sort of a clear mind and you're ready to start the day. I've always liked just one little nugget to think about, something that you can work to improve on throughout the day. And that's what I wanted the podcast to be. Like, don't forget that your perception shapes your reality. That's the message for the morning. You hear that and you think, okay, maybe there's some things that I'm looking at that I can tweak a little bit and change the way I function in that environment, and just things like that. So they coexist together.
Yeah, it's like yin and yang. The one delivers the rational aspect, and the other one delivers a little bit more the emotional, passionate aspect about the mission itself, and both kind of coexist.
Exactly.
Like a mechanism. It's a great gear. How important were those mentors, those people who kind of led you the right path? How could you pick one where you say this was a fundamental experience that kind of definitely has been my crossroad?
Yeah. My favorite example, I've had a few. My favorite example is my friend Rod, who actually just interviewed on the podcast, and just an incredibly successful guy. Started dozens of businesses. He's a Hollywood producer. He's just done amazing things. And he reached out, long story short, asked me to write a speech for him. Mm-hmm. And this is about 4 years ago, 3 years ago, three and a half, something like that. And so, my world was a lot smaller at that point. And, you're excited about the opportunity and you want to connect and just help someone out and feel good about what you do. So we're sitting there, and the joke is, he's like, all right, he tells me what he needs. He's like, all right, Eddie, how much is this going to cost me? And I say, Rod, I don't care, man. I don't care if you don't pay me. I just want to work with you. And he looked at me and he's like, you have to sell yourself in life. Like, if you don't value yourself high, Eddie, no one's going to value you high. And I'm like, no one comes along in life and just says stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it was just an incredible thing. Yeah. And I realized, leaving that day, it's like,
that's a piece.
You need, really right? That's some deep stuff.
It seems so simple, but most of those good pieces of advice on the surface, they look a little bit simplistic. But if you just dive into them, just kind of analyze every word, all in a certain sense, it's connected on so many deeper levels. It will kind of, blow your mind like this one right here. Exactly.
I'm a firm believer that, the details never make or break you. Right. I mean, it's the fundamental big picture stuff that, ultimately you reflect and you change. The details tend to work themselves out if you have the foundation in place.
I mean, of course, every client is different. Every mission is kind of different. But do you like to go first because it's your world within? It's like all the great masters from the ancient times were also preaching. Like, first of all, you just go inside and check on yourself and create that temple. And from that world within, there is a well that is basically, it's endless. And from that you can, so do you like to dive in from the inside and take it and exploit it? Or sometimes it's more important to have like a more of a holistic view of the whole thing and kind of see how it works on the outside sometimes, or is it mixed?
I think it's mixed. I mean, for me, it's a symbol. It's almost like a reminder that there is an opportunity in every single situation. Like, if you have two people, looking at, and particularly in the world of entrepreneurship that I'm so immersed in right now, it's like you can have the same collapse happen to two different people, and one person will see it as a problem and completely dissolve. The other person will find the opportunity and just allow it to propel them. And that's really the idea. It's like, was it Thoreau who says, it's not what you look at, it's what you see. So it's really understanding that you decide your reality and then you fill in those gaps. And pretty much everything that I create ties into that in some capacity. It's like, don't forget, you're so much more in control of your life than you think. That's the idea.
We get bombarded with insecurity. We get bombarded with tension from the outside world, from the media complex, from our environment, sometimes from our friends, closest friends. We get bombarded with, messages that sometimes, it really depends how we decide that those messages affect us. I mean, if I'm an actor, I'm auditioning, I'm rolling out my casting, my reading process. And in the end, the casting director says, thanks a lot. See you next time. And you go home and say, what the fuck? I did everything wrong, right? It was me. And you're beating up yourself and denigrating yourself. And maybe the next day he calls you and said, you know what? Come over to the callback. I like your tape. I like your reading. And so we interpret things in a way that we want to interpret them. Whether it's a long speech, whether it's a little thing, a note, sometimes a letter, or sometimes like a reaction, a mimical expression, we interpret those things in the way we want to interpret them. We program ourselves to react in a certain way because we think that what he just said means this and that. But actually, we should be way more curious and also gullible in a positive way to see where this actually leads, instead of having an immediate judgment on something.
Right. Seeing it out. One of the most impactful books I've read was by Bryan Cranston, A Life in Parts.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I always refer to acting and actors because the amount of rejection that comes with just getting that one part, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get your teeth kicked in for so long, and it's such a beautiful metaphor for life, because that's what it's about, man. It's just you need one yes. That's all it is. And it's believing yourself enough to get to that point. In the, Bryan Cranston's book, really just the way he tells, he's a brilliant storyteller. The way he talks about sort of the ups and downs through his acting career is really some cool stuff.
I love his humor. He's a smart person. You can clearly tell he's very intelligent because he has that humor. He sees things from the right angle. He attacks the boulder from the right angle, totally, because he's learned.
Yeah.
And I think that's why also actors, funny thing, like actors, have you realized like actors become pretty much everything they want? When they quit acting, they can become presidents, leaders of nations and mayors of towns. They become pilots. Why? Because first of all, they're imitating life. Of course, they have to kind of jump into another reality, another imagined life. But what you just said, I think is fundamental. They deal with so much setbacks, so many no's, way more than a regular person, and they learn so much through every no that at a certain point they're basically able to choose. Because they all got it. It's all installed right now. But tell me, because you said right now you're very much focused on the entrepreneurial side of your life and also teaching those people, and being an actor today, being a creative mind, being a performing artist in any way means that you are an entrepreneur, because everybody has become his own brand, his own marketing boss, his own marketing campaign throughout the year. Point. What do you feel like the crucial mistakes are sometimes of really propelling that brand, besides, of course, knowing your purpose and believing that?
Yeah, well, I think patience is one of them. It's funny because the internet really evened the playing field, which is fantastic. There's no middleman, but it also means, God, I mean, you got to provide value, and you got to do it for free, and you have to do it for a long time. And that's just sort of the reality of the situation. Like, I remember this was my strategy. And by the way, I have some business partners that would disagree with this, and that's fine. But in my opinion, and I have some very loyal fans that are a big part of the community and love what I do. And I spent 4 years just releasing content, not pitching, not selling, none of that, just adding value and building a platform. Because here's the reality when it comes to building a brand. If you're impacting lives and your work is resonating, and whether it's entertainment, whether it's education, all the different categories, whatever. But if you have enough people that you're touching or you're impacting, whatever that niche is, the money comes. And so building a brand to me is about patience. It's about authenticity. It's about consistency. There are a lot of fundamental pillars there that, play a big role, but it's the long game,
It's the tailored game. I call it always the tailored game. You're tailoring a suit. Right now, you got the fabric, but you have to tailor the suit. Sometimes you need to make some adjustments, some tweaks here and there, stretch something out. But in the end, you're tailoring this suit that you present to the world. So, of course, at a certain point, it needs to be flawless, but not in the beginning. In the beginning, you can play around with your colors and experiment a little bit and learn. Learn. People, they want to give, but they refuse to learn and learn. Where does this giving come from in the first place? You know what I mean?
That's a great point, man. Yeah. And I would agree with that, and even say after you've succeeded, right? So like one of the challenges I've come across with content is there's a winning formula now. Like I know with videos, if we're looking at strictly YouTube numbers, right? I know what works. And sometimes you get locked into doing what works and it's not what you want or what feels right, or you're scared to experiment and you lose that sort of that entrepreneurial spirit right when you got out.
Right.
And it's like, can't lose that.
Right. Yeah, you need that crazy attitude sometimes. And also to be I'm reading Alchemy right now, which is an amazing book. It's written by one of the greatest ad campaign advertisement agencies in the UK. He's crazy, that guy. And he says ask stupid questions all the time, right? Never be satisfied with the status quo of what you've achieved. Even if you have like a 750K YouTube views a month, like kind of change that product whenever you can and tap into something new, because that will keep you alive and floating. If Coca-Cola stops advertising its products in 5 years, they will be gone, even though it's the greatest company on earth.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're not evolving, you're dying.
Right. Yeah. When do you start acting, man? You have to start acting. You're really good at it. No, I'm serious. I think you can impact people also with acting skills, because your monologue on the beach, that was really impressive. I don't know if you really reflected on this, but just walking on the beach for 4 minutes can be the most boring thing to watch on earth. And you made it, of course, the sound and everything, but you're an actor. You got that emotion stored in. Where does all this emotion come from?
I don't know. It's just what I love to do. It's like taking ideas, and it's funny because you can live your whole life without touching those, right? So it's almost like, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I have a good friend of mine who I think is just so brilliant. He doesn't just hold a camera; he's a storyteller. It's like I love working with him, and we'll sit down for however long, spend 3 days somewhere. We'll make this video and just release it. And it's like that could easily have just never happened. It's funny how quick, it's like a split decision changes things. But yeah, I feel like that emotive stuff, if you don't, take initiative and tap into it, doesn't come to fruition.
You have a new client. He's asking you for help. Where do you actually put the key in to ignite the vehicle?
So for me, I feel like the beginning of any pursuit is like understanding that it's possible, right? So I would do like, I would give some books, right? So The Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss, The Alchemist, and then I'd go to Essentialism, about cutting away the things you don't want. And then I'd go to Your One Thing, which is a book about going all in on the things you do want. And then Atomic Habits, which talks about, okay, now so how do you set up the right world around you? And to me, it's a process, and it's a series of mental adjustments. Because I truly believe that, like, if you are mentally conditioned and passionate about what you're doing, you can do anything. You fill in the details along the way, right? But you got to make sure the trajectory is on point. And so that's where I'd start. You're like, are you thinking right?
It's so easy. Just think right. But
just think right.
What kind of art do you love? What kind of art do you dig? What inspires you?
Music. I really enjoy music. I enjoy poetry. But yeah, like some of my most important epiphanies have come from just walking, listening to music, running, listening to music, just, shutting the brain off for a little bit.
Yeah. And then the critical juice kicks in automatically. Yeah, we listen too much to our brain. And at the same time, yeah, it's a combinational process. Brothers and sisters working together to make that ultimate success. Eddie, I think our creative communities can get a lot of this, and they've learned a lot. It's been really an honor having you on the show, taking your time for this. And I think you impacted it again, another chain of people, and they will hopefully get back to you. Of course, I will include all the links. Check out Eddie's content. It's Your World Within. Check out his YouTube channel. Check out his podcast, which is always on point. I like to wake up with the rational thought, and then maybe in the evening just get an emotional, passionate thing into my system. So I kind of have it equilibrated and balanced out. It's always working fine with me, and I'm sure it will work fine for my audience, for our audiences as well. So thank you so much, Eddie.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it, man.
So thanks so much, creative community, for sticking with us till the end. It was a great pleasure sharing this talk with the legendary Eddie PINERO. Talks on acting. We will see us soon with the next episode. In the meanwhile, subscribe to Eddie's content and to our channel, of course. If you have any inquiry, if you want to spice up your product, if you want to learn how to act in a remarkable way, jump to my website. It's the COACHMC.studio, and send us an email, send us an inquiry, send us a comment. See you next time with the next video. Now you're ready to perform.